Today I want to show you guys something that's kind of a cool interaction. If you guys have watched my Nahida guide or my Nahida teams video, I've mentioned things about like reverse melt being possible with Nahida now. The reason this is so significant is actually because reverse melt was only possible with a few units previously. Those two units were actually Xiangling and Kazuha. Xiangling would apply enough pyro to make it so you could consistently reverse melt. Kazuha would do a similar thing in conjunction with other units, and so you could use that for characters like Ganyu. And Ganyu, as you can see, is on our team right now. You could use that so you consistently have enough pyro to be able to reverse melt with them and do a lot of damage. Right now, Nahida just added another character to that roster. So Nahida is actually a character that we are able to use for lots of different melt teams. Now, not all of them are going to be like top shelf or like super good, but the fact that she opens up a new way to play reverse melt is pretty dang cool in my opinion. And so today I wanted to kind of look at that, go through and basically kind of show you guys how easy reverse melt feels to play now, and then also kind of talk about some other characters you can do this interaction with and ones that work. So we'll just go into Abyss real quick and I'll show you sort of what I'm running. So right now my Zhongli is in Shield Hell, and even then his stats are kind of, they're pretty bad. Bennett's got a decent setup here. We've got about 250 ER. We've got full noblesse, energy recharge, pyro damage, crit rate. Nahida, we're running on Thrilling Tales, and we have just triple EM, some really cope pieces, but it works out. Talents are level 1, Constellation 0. I have a C1 Ganyu because I got kind of lucky on her banner way back when. 47 to a 1 4-piece Wanderers, and that's for the melts bonuses and stuff. So all in all, like it's a pretty decent team. One thing I want to point out is that since Nahida is able to share elemental mastery with your team, that combined with Bennett is basically going to enhance your melt Ganyu's damage compared to other melt teams. The difference is going to be that usually Xiangling is dealing a lot of damage. You don't have Xiangling in this team, so as a result, you're getting decent damage from burning and stuff, and you're getting a bonus to Ganyu's damage. How well it stacks up to other teams, I can't tell you off the top of my head, but it's still pretty good. But let's just get on in there, just so you guys know I am using an Elemental Mastery Sands because I'm going to be getting passed off a bunch of attack from Thrilling Tales, and honestly, you're not going to have Ganyu on the field for more than probably 10 seconds anyways. And I'll just kind of show you guys how to play this. By the way, if you guys enjoy this type of content, come check out the Twitch. We're doing this live right now, and we do lots of like testing and stuff when characters go live. Lots of fun stuff. You guys should come hang out. Let's go and just start this run. I don't feel like I did the best at explaining this when I was on stream yesterday, so basically the TLDR is that Nahida's elemental skill can trigger every 2.5 seconds, and because at the rate that you are shooting Ganyu charge shots, you're basically able to trigger the Dendro application every single time you shoot a charge shot at an enemy and create a reaction that will trigger it. In this case, the reaction is melt. Now technically this has always worked with Dendro, but the thing is that Nahida has such consistent and free and easy uptime on Dendro application, and she also has elemental mastery share, so it just really makes this team super easy to play. Burning consumes 1 unit of Dendro every 1.74 seconds, so technically you're getting a longer burn with Nahida as well, which gives you more room to make mistakes and recover them. The one downside to this is that you may not actually be able to use Ganyu's burst or skill. If you use them too close together, what can end up happening is you will actually remove the underlying pyro, and you'll have to reapply pyro again to get the burning. Sometimes it feels like you have to use Ganyu's elemental skill to either get away or create a taunt for enemies, and the nice thing about this team is it's super easy to recover your burning if you lose it, so just keep all that in mind. You can get them all burning and then just like shred through them in AoE because that's what Ganyu's best at. Okay, so we used Bennett's burst at the end, and this is the energy bottleneck. Now usually if you're just killing enemies, this doesn't matter, but if you use his burst at the end of the chamber, just like honestly with any other Abyss team, you're gonna be kind of fucked. So now we have to get pyro on all these guys. Nahida, Deja Vu, and I don't have my shield up, so that's gonna hurt. Fuck. And then if you use her skill, you're going to remove the burning too. So there's like a lot of ways you can actually ruin this, but if you use her skill separately, then you can get the burning to keep going. As long as you're waiting the 2 seconds in between for Kusanali to re-up the her aura here. This floor is not really a good showcase for this, if I'm completely honest, because all of these enemies want to stay spread out, and like getting pyro to hit all of them to begin with is rough. If you have a character that can hit pyro on everyone like fairly consistently, it ends up being okay. Anyways, someone asked me about Melt Ayaka. Like, why not run Melt Ayaka with Xiangling instead? So there's a couple of reasons. First off, that's not what this video is about. This video is about Nahida using Dendro character instead. But the second thing is that Ayaka just applies too much cryo. Her burst ticks apply, or they happen faster, and with standard ICD, it means that she's going to be applying cryo more frequently. And so it's kind of like what happened when I used my elemental skill on Ganyu and the charged attack, where it removed the underlying pyro on them, and then the burning just went out, and then you weren't getting any more melts. So Ayaka will do that. And then also her sprint does a similar thing where it applies cryo to enemies. So all in all, it just is a lot harder to make that work. And if you want to run Melt Ayaka, that's fine. I don't particularly recommend it, but you know, teach their own. So same deal with this floor. Got to get Bennett's burst first. Got to dodge these guys. Perfect. Now they're not all grouped up, so not all of them are going to get burning. Okay, now they are because they are all grouped up. And if all goes well, they should get burning constantly reapplied because it's an AoE. However, that guy lost his burning because he... Actually, I don't even think he had pyro on him to begin with. You can usually only get about 3 to 4 Ganyu shots per rotation off. Also, again, energy bottlenecks. So, basically like 3 to 4 shots off per rotation with Ganyu here. And the reason being that, first off, your shield will go down. But second off, like you just don't want to stay on field that long. Like you want to make sure that you can get that Thrilling Tales buff, swap off, go through for another rotation. Then on third rotation, ideally, you'll have the Thrilling Tales buff again. And that's basically how you would do that. But like, as you can see, it has a lot of front-loaded damage, assuming you do the rotation right, assuming everyone gets pyro on them and burning on them. It's pretty easy to do. The downside is enemies that don't want to be grouped up, similar to just how you would play Ganyu normally, it's a problem. Ganyu's always had this issue where, like, you know, single target damage is comparable to a lot of other units. AoE damage, amazing. But there's enemies that will just simply not move for you, and you don't have a grouper in this team. So the downside would be that you don't have a grouper. However, the energy needs are not as bad as your typical reverse melt team. Your energy needs are only for Bennett, and Bennett only takes 3 to 4 elemental skills. If you use his burst at the end of the previous chamber, only 3 or 4 elemental skills to get his burst back, which seems like a lot of time loss, but if you plan your abyss better and you manage to clear at the right time in your rotation, it's really not that bad. Also, you could just run Favonius on Zhongli too. That's like another easy way to fix that. Whereas like if you have Xiangling, you have to worry about a little bit of both of the characters. Sometimes with Xiangling, depending on the amount of enemies you have, you'll have to use an extra few Bennett skills to get her burst back as well. So it really just depends on the content, on the team, whether or not you're clearing in a quick fashion or if you're clearing in a slow fashion. It's just things like that. But overall, like, I don't think this team is bad. I think it's actually a little bit easier to play than an original reverse melt. It just looked really bad because the NPCs were walking all over the place and not in the right place. But if you watch my team's guide, you'll see I had a much easier time with it that run. A lot of RNG with Abyss this time around, but it's okay. And I'm just mostly glad that there's another way to play reverse melt. I think that's really cool. Now, another thing you can do, which we were testing a little bit ago, was actually Rosaria. Rosaria isn't going to be as much damage as Ganyu, but if you add Kazuha instead of Zhongli, because let's keep in mind, you don't need to run away and dodge enemies as much because like you can just move freely. Like you're not aiming down a bow or anything. So you don't have that problem anymore. So you can use Kazuha. And what you can do is you can go ahead and use Kazuha like here, swirl up all the enemies, apply burning to all of them or pyro to all of them, use Nahida here. And what it's essentially going to do is make it a lot easier to apply burning to everyone. And so in a way, even though this team is going to be slightly worse, it's going to feel a lot better. Unless you just have like good Abyss runs where enemies aren't being wonky and doing whatever they want to do. Make it free to play friendly, Smile. Look at that. Free to play friendly with my, okay, that's really bad actually. Never mind. I take it back. The fact that I've been playing this game since launch and farming that domain for months and still don't have something good out of it, man, I can't. As you can see, here's our free to play Rosaria, Staff of Homa C6. So very free to play friendly. I realize that like a lot of people in my comments sometimes like don't realize when I'm being sarcastic. So they'll be like, no, it's not. That's not free to play. What do you mean? Of course it's free to play. Yo, Staff of Homa C6 Rosaria. Very easily obtainable. Okay, back on this floor. So now we basically don't have any energy, so we're just gonna have to dodge them. Swirl pyro together for everyone. Again, Fav procs. You can just kind of rotate through everyone. Just don't go to Nahida because Nahida's got Thrilling Tales, right? Okay, so now Bennett burst, drop it. Do that. And I've already messed up by not using Kazuha burst, but it's not too late. We can still do Kazuha burst. And then just group them up again. Pull them in. These guys get knocked back a lot, like very frequently. But honestly, you should be able to consistently group them up again. Which is, again, the benefit of Kazuha is him having a very short cooldown on his grouping. I think a lot of people don't realize that like one of the biggest differences between Sucrose and Kazuha is like how quickly you can just kind of like tap E with Kazuha if you need to group people. So like as you can see, the teams we just ran are fine. They're viable. Obviously we had some mishaps with the Ganyu Melt team, but the Ganyu Melt team's still not that bad. It was, you know, RNG of enemies can happen. Things change per run. But you can even use like a 4-star like Rosaria. And if you have an invested Rosaria, if you take her to level 90, you have high level talents, let's say, like even if you don't have constellations on her, you're still able to get some pretty solid damage. I would say that C2, which you can't see right now because of my camera, I would say that C2 is actually pretty important. Getting the extra 4 seconds on her burst is nice. The fact that Nahida enables reverse melt to happen is super fun. And the fact that you can also share elemental mastery. Now my Nahida only has 611 EM, which is pretty dang bad. You should probably have around 800. Share about 200 EM with your on-field character. It's gonna help your Rosaria deal a lot more damage. At the beginning of the video, I mentioned that basically you're gonna be sharing elemental mastery of the highest party member. This is assuming like it's gonna take from either Kazuha or from Nahida, depending on who's higher. In my case for this, like if I had like 800 EM, that would actually be higher than my Kazuha because my Kazuha is like Giga Cope. I literally have like the worst EM artifacts the world has ever seen and like no EM substats on any of the artifacts that I need EM substats on. And so like literally even just having like 800 on Nahida for me is literally gonna be like so much more beneficial. But if you can manage to get your Kazuha to 1,000, that's fine too. There's so much room for flexibility in this because the team is really straightforward to play. So, and then also the Deepwood, you don't have to run Deepwood on her for this. You could run something else if you wanted to deal more damage. I just found that Thrilling Tales combined with Bennett buff, combined with the extra elemental damage buff from Kazuha can be really, really beneficial for the entire team. And especially since you don't have to actually, you can actually just swirl any amount of Cryo, and that's gonna buff Rosaria as well. We didn't even swirl Cryo in this video. But you also have the option to start off Rosaria, use Kazuha, swirl Cryo, then Bennett, then Kazuha burst, and then, you know, like you can switch up the rotation and it's gonna be fine. The team just does a lot of front-loaded damage. It's not hard to get the reverse melts, and it feels really nice to play. It's really easy. We'll go in and I'll show you a quick example of the other rotation that I was just talking about. So like if you wanted to, the other option you have to do is this, and this is probably honestly a little bit better. Basically, you would do that. You would swirl Cryo, Bennett EQ, and then you should be able to snapshot that EM buff, which is going to be nice for Rosaria. And then because you're in the, since you're self-infusing Pyro with Bennett's burst, you're going to get a Pyro swirl on Kazuha. Very good stuff. But yeah, it's like, it's a good team. It's really solid. It's really, honestly, I can't call it free-to-play friendly because it takes Nahida and it takes Kazuha, which are both two very strong and highly desired units. But it's a fun new way to play the game. So anyways, I just kind of wanted to showcase that and show you guys that reverse melt works with Nahida, and she's really changed a lot of things about this game, making a lot more things accessible, making Dendro teams feel a lot better. Being a new unit for reverse melt is really cool, and I'm excited to see what we can do with her in the future. I think it'll be really dope. Energy bottlenecks? No, thank you. We have Nahida. Anyways, if you guys have enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to the channel. I don't have anything else to say, just subscribe.